Alright, hello everybody. Thank you all for sticking tuned during that setup. Just gonna get right into the run. This is Blaster Master for NES. A little bit different of a title screen than some of you are probably used to. I'm running the Japanese version of the game. It has a couple of skips that are exclusive. Oh, start the timer by the way, I'm sorry. I'm bad at this. Got a couple skips that are exclusive to the Japanese release of the game. Just some minor differences in how the engine handles certain things, makes certain things work on this version that don't work on the US version. There's also a couple other differences. This version of the game lags significantly less than the original the US release. It still lags, but just not quite as bad. It's due to a different... Oh, that was really dumb. I just fat-fingered my select button. Great start. But the game runs its RNG routines differently between the two versions, and that leads to the US version kinda having more behind-the-scenes processing going on. Which in the end makes the NES version a lot laggier than the Famicom original. Due to the way the game kinda... US version, it runs... It reseeds the RNG value every time that value is called upon, which can handle... It can happen multiple times per frame. In the Japanese version, it only does that once per frame, so no matter what, there's only one RNG seed flip per frame. When we first noticed the differences, we thought it was just different mapper chips between the two games, but nope, it's just due to the way it handles its RNG. Yeah, we're heading on to the first boss right here. Mother Brain. Not that Mother Brain, though. Different Mother Brain. Nintendo, you cannot sue us. Pretty easy boss fight. Just keep stepping around him, firing grenades until he's done. She? I don't know what Mother Brain prefers to go by. I don't want to assume. Kill those totally not Metroids. Again, Nintendo can't sue us. These aren't your assets. Go away. But we're making our way back to our tank here. Gonna kill off some enemies. A big part of speedrunning this game is lag reduction. Even in the Japanese version, with it having less lag, it's still there, and you try to reduce it as much as you can through killing certain enemies, or in some cases, not killing certain enemies because the extra bullet will cause more lag than the enemy does. Or in some rooms, knowing certain enemies to kill and certain enemies to leave alive. Because the game can only spawn so many enemies into a room. And if you have certain enemies still alive in previous rooms, it kind of causes it to hit sprite limits and not spawn certain enemies in upcoming rooms. I'll try exploiting that at the start of Area 3, actually, with a hover drop on screen to despawn a turret in the next room. Doesn't always happen, but when it does, it saves a good second or two in that room just from lag alone. Did they ever figure out the weird boss despawn thing? So, after that happened, some testers went absolutely bonkers trying to figure it out. To the point where somebody even literally recreated my entire GDQ run from the power on of the console until that boss despawned, trying to get it to happen again. Nothing. Could not recreate it. Testers figured out what exactly happened to cause the boss to not spawn, but the item to still spawn, but they haven't figured out, like, what would have caused that change to make that happen. I think it was just a fluke. I think it is not something that's going to be recreatable. So, for context, at that GDQ, I was playing on one of the GDQ front loaders, which they don't necessarily have the most reliable cart connections. And then on top of that, I was running a Japanese Blaster Master PCB through a US to Japanese cart converter into said NES with a potentially sketchy cart connection. So I think somewhere along all those circuitry transfer points, for lack of a better term, something got messed up between there and the NES actually receiving the data, and it caused it to do the thing. But again, it's all purely speculation because none of us actually know. Unfortunately for us, that boss is actually showing up for work today. So, a couple bosses in this game can be killed very easily the way I just did. It's probably the most well-known skip in this, or not necessarily skip, but strategy in this game, due to the fact that it was featured pretty predominantly in Nintendo Power back in the day. Anybody who grew up with the NES as a kid got at least one game where they got a Nintendo Power card in their game, just trying to get them to subscribe to Nintendo Power, but it showed a couple different cool strategies for some Nintendo games, and one of them was that boss kill. Pretty much on certain bosses, it only works on bosses that have like a palette swapped variant. So that would be areas 2 and 6, because they both have essentially the same boss, just different colors. And areas 4 and 7, because they both use, again, the same boss, but different colors. I don't know why it only works on them, but not, like, all the bosses. But if you throw a grenade, and while that grenade is exploding on the boss and the boss is taking damage, you pause the game, it keeps ticking up damage on the boss. So you just pause it and wait a little bit and unpause it, and the boss goes explode. Hey, we got the hover drop. That's going to despawn a turret in this room. Too bad I'm probably going to die, though. Nah, we're good. Had to hesitate a little bit to not get hit by the caterpillar. Normally you would just tank the damage and go through. There's the death. Okay, that's not a bad one. This is near the door entrance. Full disclosure, I am super rusty with this game. I haven't really been, like, speedrunning too consistently the past couple years, and I've been kind of, like, practicing this game off-stream the past few days to get ready for this marathon, but I was also working the GDQ marathon, so I kind of didn't have too much time to really de-rust like I would have liked to. But it works out to all of yours benefit, because that just means you get a super sloppy run to watch with lots of funny deaths and mistakes. It'll be good for all of us, I promise. Here we are in Area 3, which has probably my second favorite music in the game. This entire game is just loaded with absolute slappers on the soundtrack. Area 8, it's kind of boring musically, but it fits the theme of the area really well. But with that, the exception of Area 8, this game from start to finish is just solid soundtrack. This is probably my second favorite song on said soundtrack. Only Area 7 tops it out. Oh my god, these jumps are so sloppy. We're getting there, though. You jerk. So that's another bit of a little trick in this game. Being able to fire your sub-weapon upwards like that. It's definitely not intended. If you just use your sub-weapon, it obviously fires the 3 missiles horizontally across the screen. And if you hold up and aim your turret up and then fire your sub-weapon, you still fire the missiles horizontally on the screen. But if you aim upwards and then instantly use your sub-weapon during the turret transition, for some reason, it fires the missiles upwards. Alright, so I do have to kind of be careful. Normally you would just tank a bunch of damage in this dungeon, and if your health is too low, take a death to refill your health for the boss. I'm not going to have that luxury because I took those 2 dumb deaths earlier already. Hey, an enemy despawned there. That actually was kind of fortunate because it's right in the path of me walking to the boss. I would have probably hit it. Photophage, pretty simple boss. It's these 16 boxes that spawn around the arena. Just mash them down with grenades. Now, after the screen turns black here, we're going to hit reset real quick. Another quirk of the Japanese version that doesn't happen in the US version, it preserves your game state through resets. So, as long as you don't actually hard power cycle the game, it stores the bosses you've killed and the items you've picked up. So now that we're done in Area 3 getting our hover upgrade, we would have to come back to the very starting screen of the game anyways to advance on to the next area. So we're gonna just take a quick reset warp and skip all the backtracking to do that. Now we're just kind of hoping for RNG to not be a butt. There we go. We got our 3 hover drops. We're gonna take a death. It's a minor time save. It just saves going back to the start of this screen to start flying up this wall. Have to be careful to not get hit by any of those enemies because I have just enough hover to make it all the way up. And if any of them hit me in midair, it instantly knocks me down to the ground. Which means I have to go farm hover again. That was one of the greatest things about, excuse me. They made a remake of this game about 4 or 5 years ago for the Nintendo Switch. It's since been released on other platforms as well. PS4 and 5, Xbox One and Series, whatever the heck, Steam, etc. And yeah, they made it so your hover gauge kind of automatically refills. And it was a nice quality of life improvement. So what I did in the previous area is I skipped needing the key to get through Area 4 by turning around on the same frame that I enter a door transition. It makes the game bug out and kind of transition the door the wrong direction, as you're seeing me do right now. I do it 3 times here to offset my position enough to be able to get past that rock and continue on without my tank. Pretty much every time I do that transition glitch, it's causing Jason's internal position in the game to be offset by 1 tile. So I can do that multiple times and kind of offset my internal position and go through solid objects. And then when you pause and unpause, it makes the game catch up with where it's supposed to be and sets everything right. So another bonus of taking that intentional death after the hover farm, it's going to save me a little bit of time. Well, not necessarily save time, but it's going to make the process of taking a game over warp in a little bit here easier on me. Because after we fight the boss of this area, I need to go back to the very start of Area 5, and what easier way to do that than to just take a game over, and when you continue, the game puts you at the start of the area you were in. And another bonus of the Japanese version over the US version, we have infinite continues in this release. Alright, we're going to take one more death here. That's to just burn off a life so our game over warp can go easier. And also refills our health for this hallway. And the boss fight coming up. I'm just going to play it safe and kill that laser gun. Alright. So this boss fight is definitely going to be different than any of you remember it, if you played this game. So this is another big difference between the Japanese and US version. The US version can also do this glitch, but it's handled a different way. Alright, quick game over. So, pretty much, the NES can only draw active objects on the screen as sprites. And it has a hard sprite limit, and also, like, a limit on how big it can actually make those sprites. So, for a lot of older NES games, or not even necessarily older ones, a lot of just NES games in general, the strat was to black out the screen and draw the boss as a background object, because you can make those as big as you want. So, for some reason, if you cause a door transition to happen at the exact same time that a boss is spawning, it messes out the blacking out the screen and, like, negating everything part, and it attempts to draw the boss into the previous room, but also load the background for the previous room, which leads to that explosion of colors that you all seen right there. The difference between the Japanese and US version there is the Japanese version, you can pause buffer it, and it's got an 8-frame window that you have to hit to get that to happen. The US version, it cannot be pause buffered, and it is a 1-frame window. So much harder to do. They also look visually slightly different because the game tries to draw the background differently between the two different methods. Now we're going through Area 6. Try the leap of faith here. We got it. Nice. So that jump that I did under that platform, it saves almost no time. Half a second at most. And if you mess it up, it costs you at least 40 seconds. But man, does it just look awesome and feel great when it goes well. Which doesn't happen all the time, trust me. I've definitely fallen multiple times there. I'm on the right weapon. What am I doing? Yeah, with that leap of faith, the game likes to eat your jump inputs there because of the enemies on screen. It makes it lag ever so slightly, and this game, when it's lagging, it will not accept your jumps sometimes. Alright, get in the door, please. That door's kind of weird, like, the actual active part of the door that you have to hit down to enter does not line up with where the opening of the door is visually at all. It's actually kind of common in this game. A lot of the doorways are slightly left of where they visually appear to be on screen. This room sucks. There we go. Down to 0 HP. Hopefully none of these eyeballs want to be trolls. Nah, they're being good sports. Alright, on to Zombie Crab. Hopefully he doesn't turn into a zombie on us. Doesn't happen too often in the Japanese version, thankfully. Alright, it appears as if we're good. Now we're going to do another quick reset warp, because we would, to get to Area 7, we have to go back to Area 2, which takes us back through Area 1. Since we're going back through Area 1 anyways, why not save a bunch of time by hitting reset, keeping all our items and stuff, and continuing on. Area 7 has another skip that's exclusive to the Japanese version of the game. For anybody that has seen any of the races for this at AGDQ, AGDQ 2016, I did a skip in Area 7 that required a frame-perfect door entry or the game soft-locked. That skip works in the US version to skip the last 30 to 45 seconds of Area 7. Then, after AGDQ, somebody found a way to do a skip earlier in the stage that took you to the room that the original skip happened in, which skipped a large portion of the rest of Area 7. It required a really difficult setup with a lot of stuff that could go wrong. Then after you got that, you had to go and do the old frame perfect or you soft lock skip. Then somebody found a way to make that no longer frame perfect or you soft lock and make it pretty free, honestly. And then we switched to the Japanese version when it was discovered how much faster it was, and it was discovered you don't have to do any of that stuff. There's a way to damage boost over the lava in Area 7 in the Japanese version only that skips the entirety of Area 7 and is not exactly free, but it's much easier and more consistent than trying to hit a one frame or the game crashes. Yeah. The original skip was about 25 or 26 minutes into what at the time was a 30-minute run. So really far into the run to risk crashing to save 30 seconds, but I think there was really only 2 runners that were doing the original version of what we used to call the task skip. Alright, here's the Area 7 skip. I'm going to attempt to do some damage boost trickery to get over this lava. It might not work the first time. Maybe? Nope. What caused the crash? So if you didn't hit the door entry, you died if you didn't hit the frame perfect door entry. That's not gonna work. Oh, it did! But, because you displaced the tile layer using that door transition glitch to set up that old task skip, if you died during it, which you absolutely died if you didn't hit the one frame window, the game would attempt to respawn you inside of a wall. And obviously you just end up stuck in the wall, unable to progress. Yeah, there were really only 2 or 3 runners that ever did the task skip. I mean, a lot of people tried it and hit it successfully, but there was only... I don't want to leave anybody out and be a douche, but I think I really only remember 2 or 3 people actually using that skip in runs. Me, I Love Mario, and I want to say Shining Dragoon did some runs with that skip. I could be wrong. Hey, we got our hover drop. That helps a lot in Area 8. Shoutouts to Feasel who found this strat that I just totally botched. Sorry, Feasel. I have shamed you. Yeah, that old Area 7 skip, it was actually in the old all bosses task, I believe it was. And a few of us were talking about maybe trying it in real time, and we just it seemed too hard to be able to do in real time. But then I decided to just kind of really just bored one night, tired of... I was having a bad night of runs, couldn't really finish any runs, like the game just wasn't agreeing with me, so I decided to like spend a couple hours really digging into the task skip and seeing if maybe it was possible to, obviously not 100% success rate for a human, but just to be able to do it enough to be able to try going for it in runs. And after a couple hours of working with it, I started hitting it more than I was missing it, and started going for it in runs. About that same time is when I Love Mario started going for it in runs as well. And yeah, it was a very, very big part of this game and its route for a little while there until the Japanese switch. Which also happened because of the game being a butt and not agreeing with me. I was doing speedruns of the Deathless category, which doesn't allow really any kind of warps or skipping anything. And I was just having bad RNG with the hover farm every run. I own like multiple US Blaster Master cartridges, so I just kind of was swapping cartridges every time I got a bad run that died to RNG. And then, jokingly, I was like, hey, let's see if the Japanese version gives us any better RNG. At that time, we figured it was just the same game with a different title screen and intro screen. And I put in the Japanese version, started doing my run, and noticed I was, like, literally getting a gold split every split. Like, I would have the sloppiest split of my life and still get a gold somehow. And that caused us to really look into the Japanese version and what was different, and it just led to a whole ton of discoveries for this game that really knocked the time down quite a bit. Making our way towards the final two bosses here. Little known fact, this boss was actually supposed to be in a different area of the game. Pause glitch doesn't work on him, but I can spam pausing while throwing out grenades, and it kind of reduces the rate at which his boulders spawn out of his mouth. It also makes it easier to see if they're going to hit me to get away. Alright, now this boss, we just put him in the corner, mash our ass off, and make him think about what he's done with his life. Oh no. Okay, we're good. Time. Yeah, pretty much with that strategy, if I don't keep up a minimum of 8 input a second mash that whole time, I take damage. It's not an incredibly fast mash rate, but you have to do it for like 20 to 30 seconds. Do I even want to know what my time was? 20? Oh, that's... Wow, I was questioning if I'd be able to sub 30 this game still. I'll take that. I will gladly take that. Well, hopefully you all enjoyed that. It was a sloppy run because it's out of practice, but it's a great game. I love showing it off. I love talking about all the weirdness with it, and sloppy or not, I still had fun. I hope you all did as well. So, up next is Castlevania Rondo of Blood. I unfortunately do need just a moment to switch over to that and get my we started up. So I don't know if you want to just leave it here and I'll throw the other game in, Dave, or if you want me to cut to the transition screen while we're switching. It's up to you.